how you are at the moment. So again, one of the themes we've been looking at over these 2 weeks is what can we learn by looking at developmental movement, at the ingredients that make up developmental movement, the things that it's really useful to understand. So again, if I go back to some of the things we wrote up earlier last week about that typical movement is complex and variable. That's why it's so difficult to program robots. I think I was looking at something in the paper today and I couldn't believe it. They've taught robots how to put IKEA flat pack furniture together. I think that's a really good idea because I don't know about you, but I've cried putting IKEA flat pack furniture together. Even after all my Feldenkrais. But it took them 2 years to work out, to teach them how to put a screw in. Yeah? And they can't do metal screws yet, but they can do wooden sort of plug-in ones. So, you know, our movement is incredibly complex and variable. It's always to be remembered. All of us, because we learn how to move, all have very individual ways of how we get to standing and walking, how we make transitions through space. So again, the basic characteristic of movement is the ability to move and to make transitions. So movement always implies a weight shift or a redistribution of weight. So this is absolutely fundamental to all movement. And how we really feel this is through often our contact with the ground, our extraceptors that are giving us feedback on pressure. And weight shift provides the sensory stimulus for postural reactions and balance reactions. So you could think of postural reactions are our ability to find, if you like, how we stand in space, how we do stack up in space. Postural reactions are a lot about the head knowing the pelvis, your pelvis knowing your head. And then there's your balance reactions, all those counterbalance, the ability to recover, to shift your weight, to recover or to keep going. And so to have really well-organised balance reactions and postural reactions, it's really important that we understand the results of the directions that we shift our weight in. So this directionality, this orientation, where are the directions we can shift our weight in easily, and where are the directions that maybe we don't go to at all or are less familiar to us. So one of the big things in looking at children's motor development is that your trunk muscles have to begin to learn how to develop and work in various ways. And that's one of the reasons that we look at these planes of movement. this ability of side, forward, back, and turning, these and combinations, and that very rarely are we in one of those alone. That's why our movement is so complex and variable, but that we have an understanding of these different ways of moving ourselves through space. So we're looking for that our trunk muscles can organize themselves in very different ways, but that they're organized to work together, not to fight each other. So this ability to move our torso in all of these different ways absolutely influences the movement of our limbs, our understanding of what's possible in our arms and legs and neck and head. And once we begin to raise ourselves in the gravitational field, once we're no longer simply on the floor, using the ground, big parts of ourselves to roll around and move. So once we come up to sitting and standing, where we've really reduced our contact with the ground, we've got a much smaller base of support, that it's still really important that we're exploring all of these different planes of movement, all of these different directions, so that we're transitioning all of these ways of moving and being into being able to gradually raise our centre of gravity over our base of support. So for a moment, come up to standing. Feel how you use the ground. Again, so many things you can pay attention to. And get a sense in standing at the moment. How are you supporting yourself in the gravitational field? How is your skeleton stacking up in space to support you? How do you feel this sense of your feet on the ground? The bones of your leg being supported over the bones of your feet? And how the bones of your legs come up into your hips, and how your pelvis is sitting in relationship to that. And what's the resting position of your pelvis? Does it feel a little bit tilted forward or back? A little bit turned to the left or the right? Or maybe a little bit shorter on one side than the other? And then how do you stack up your spine? Do you get a sense of where your spine is coming out of your pelvis? And it's going up to the base of your neck. And the sense of your ribs, and do you feel your ribs are working to hold you up in space? Or if they could be lightly hanging, which doesn't mean dropped, but just there's a softness in them. So how are you finding all of this ability to stack you up? And then where are your shoulder girdles sitting? Where are the collarbones coming out from the front of your chest? Going across to the side, back behind you to the shoulder blade. Where are they sitting? And how do your arms sort of hang or are suspended a little bit from your shoulder girdle? Again, they're not dropped, they're just floating there a little bit. And then how does your neck come out of this circle of your first rib? To go up to find a place to support your skull. And get a sense as you explore this in yourself, how easy is it to shift my weight? Just a little. Forward or back, left or right, or turning a little. Which of these possibilities are most open to me at the moment? And to really feel that this little weight shift on your feet is reversible. And how does the rest of your skeleton follow this little weight shift on your feet, this little shift across the ground? How free is your head to turn just a little left and right, to go a little up and down? And does this shift the weight on your feet? Where's your breathing? Great. So this is sort of your organised state for Thursday afternoon at 28 minutes past 3, because we know it changes all the time, doesn't it? But something still happens. So is this where you would have been at the beginning of the training? Can you remember where you were at the beginning of the training? Could you go there a little bit? How's it different? Did you get a little? What did you lose? Maybe you lost some length or width somewhere. Maybe your weight went more to one part of your base of support before. And how does that affect the freedom of your head and your ability to shift your weight in the cardinal directions? So the beautiful thing about Feldenkrais is that you could quite easily go from me saying, how are you now, to what am I like when I'm a little less organised. So implicitly you understand, this is when I'm a little bit more organised, this is when I'm a little less organised, and all of the things that go with that organisation. So this is, for many of us, for many of our clients, is implicit. It's not that they necessarily understand that that's happened, but that something happens over time with learning. Okay, so stay in your little less organised state and start to go for a walk and feel, how many options have you got? What's it like to shift your weight? How much do you have to move through space? How easy is it for your head to be free to orient in different directions? And then come back to your more organised state. What's different? So this is what a baby's learning implicitly through all the movements that it's exploring, all the different ways of moving across the ground, of finding different places to orient, finding all these different planes of movement that are allowing it to become better organised. Okay, so find your mat again. Have a lie down. So then again, we can go back to which of your sensory systems that you're paying attention to, or that you've been paying more attention to through awareness through movement. How are they in their process of becoming more integrated or more connected? So if I asked you to scan your contact with the ground, what distinctions can you make about that now for yourself? What would you look for that these extraceptors coming in from the ground can tell you about your organisation? How many distinctions do you make for yourself as you scan that? So this is such a basic one, because contact with the ground is really what a child first has. What's feeding in, how it's held, the support it's given, how it copes with having support or support taken away from it. Such a feeling of safety. So again, how would you change your organisation? What would happen to your contact with the ground if you felt if you were going to be less organised lying on the floor? What would you do? So how much information have you got through this sensory system that gives you feedback? And then go back to more organised, whatever that means for you today. And what happens to your contact with the ground? Okay, our next system we can look at could be our interoceptors, which the easiest one to pay attention to is your breathing. So what distinctions can you make about your breathing if you were going to use this as your scan? Where do you direct your attention to? What do you direct your attention to with your breathing? How big a library of distinctions do you have with this? So breathing tells us so much about our mood, our emotion. So how do you begin to know through sensing your breathing that you're better organised? And again, what could you do to be a little less organised? How does that influence your breathing? Is it becoming clearer to you, this feedback, these input systems that the sensory systems feed in that normally we're not aware of, but that in the Feldenkrais world we're asking people to really make distinctions about these sensations? And then go back to being more organised. Again, whatever that means for you. And how does that influence your breathing? Then there's your proprioceptors, all the feedback coming in from your joints and your muscles. Which are telling you your length, giving you a sense of length and width. When we do the cardinal lines, the shape you're making on the ground. And again, with lots of these, there could be different sensory systems feeding in. But again, your proprioceptors are basically telling you about where your limbs are in space. They're also telling you about effort, how much, where you're working hard, where something isn't ready to move. But at the moment, if we were doing a scan, so again, what's your sense of length and width? The length of your 5 cardinal lines, the width between your hips, your shoulders, your smile. And again, just get a little less organised there. What happens to your sense of length and width? What gets changed or maybe distorted? So again, and let yourself get more organised again. What happens? So again, what you'll see is we all get caught into different sensory systems. So how not only do we spread our attention to different parts of ourselves, but this idea that as Feldenkrais practitioners, we're spreading attention to different sensory systems, different ways of sensing ourselves. And looking for relationships between them. So then your vestibular system in your middle ear, could you roll your head a little left and right? How do you sense your head moving through space? And so our vestibular picks up where our head is in space, and it also picks up the speed that we're going. So do you pick up different information if you use a different speed of rolling your head? Does that give you, is there something about for some of us that when we go a bit faster, we can feel more of our head in space, or the back and the front and the sides? Again, what happens if you're a little less organised? Whatever you want to do that tells you not quite as much organised, what happens to this information in your head? And then just let it be more organised again. Have you got some, again, within all of these sensory systems, are you finding more reversibility, more ideas of knowing what you can do? This is when I'm more organised, this is when I'm less organised. And then, of course, there's your teleceptors, your eyes, your ears, your nose. So what's the difference if you're rolling your head to hear with your right ear? So the movement of the teleceptors is completely dependent on the movement of your head. What about if you lead with your right eye rather than your right ear? What is it for these teleceptors to be able to track through space smoothly, evenly, and that your head can follow? What about your left ear? Or your left eye? So again, what distinctions are you making in this freedom to take in information from the external world? Or maybe it's your nose. You're really interested in smelling something to your left or right. How does that influence how you move? And again, you can play around with all of those in terms of what happens when I feel better organised or a little less organised. How does that influence the ability of my teleceptors to be able to hear, to see? And again, as we gradually build up more relationships, that we notice, my eyes aren't as free to move when I have less contact in my lower back, or I've got my legs closer together, or my breathing's more up in my chest. So how do we begin to look for relationships here? Okay, leave it, just rest. So then we're going to add one more little thing that I've found is really often really helpful. So begin to turn your head a little left and right. So Feldenkrais was very keen on this freedom of our head. And really find a way to do it that you really don't have to pay much attention to it. It's just going to become this easy rhythm, a little left and right, where your eyes can be soft. So your teleceptors aren't doing a lot of orienting here. It's simply this very easy roll. And begin to feel as you keep this easy rhythm going, and you begin to scan through. Maybe we'll start with your right foot, your right lower leg. So how easy is it for you to keep your head gently rolling as you scan? Might be the contact with the ground or the shape. But you're moving your attention from your right foot to your right lower leg, up to your knee, up your thigh. And just slowly scan through your whole right side. And simply noticing, are there some parts of me that my head stops, that there's some integration there that's still not clear in me. So you've got your right side of your torso, your right arm, your hand, and then your left side. And really notice as you do this scan and your head keeps rolling, as you attend to one part, could you keep a little bit of attention on the part that you've just scanned? So is it possible that I'm rolling my head, I'm scanning my right foot and moving it up my right knee, and I've still got my foot in my image as well as I'm scanning up to my right hip. So how much of yourself can you incorporate? How easy is it for you to spread your attention? And your head can stay free. And you can get more and more a complete picture of your length, your width, your depth, the space around you. And leave that. And roll to a side and come up to sitting and standing. Just see what's your sense of all of yourself as you do that at the moment, after we've been through all of those different systems? How much of you is in your image of coming to sitting and standing? And And get a sense now, how do you feel in standing? So just as I was doing with Emma in sitting before, if you went to shift your weight a little bit at the moment, how easy is it? Has anything changed from attending to all those parts of yourself with this very freedom of your head? Has anything changed in your breathing? And the ability to turn your head a little left and right. How high up now can you turn your head from? Has it changed? And if you could imagine that someone or a wind was going to come along and blow you a little bit at the moment, how easily could you respond to that perturbation? So what are your balance reactions? What happens to your balance reactions? And maybe you want to go a little bit more to one leg. You don't have to lift the other one. And just find how adaptable am I there? How many ways can I change my shape through my torso? My hips and shoulders can constantly change their relationship. This middle part of me. And my head could move through space to do that, or my head could stay more in the middle and everything can move underneath it. And you can try it a little bit more on your other leg. Just shifting your weight a little. What's my adaptability here? That I can still go up and down and left and right and a little bit forward and back. And changing my shape through my middle. Have a walk. And then keeping a sense of this in yourself, could we begin to move the mats a little bit to uncover our 4 points? So we just really need the mats moved that were over the 4 points. And once you've found your 4 points, just think of any of those different ideas that maybe as I'm going down to my 4 points, I'm interested in my head being free. Or maybe as I go down to my 4 points, I'm interested that my pressure stays even on the ground, that I don't have to push anywhere into the ground to go down. Maybe I'm interested in my 4 points that my breathing can be easy and responsive. Maybe I'm interested in the shape that I can make, all these shapes in the middle of me, that my upper torso is soft. And begin to feel how it is now to sit to one side, to turn 90 so your knees bent, to sit, and to come up again, to return to your 4 points. Is it getting a little clearer to find where your 4 points are, to return to them? When you can have this more global attention to more systems, more sensation. So where does your hip touch down? Is it in the middle? So if you're going to your left knee forward, where does your left hip touch down? Is it in the middle of your 4 points? If you're taking your left knee to the through, where does your left hip touch down? Is it in the middle of the 4 points? Or is it a little bit more toward 1 point than another? Okay. So how are you finding this ability, especially after all those wonderful ATMs from this morning, in your ability to change the shape of your upper torso because you're spiraling around it? So can you feel the movement, the mobility you have to have between your shoulders, in your upper chest, to let you get this spiral of your legs down? And you can go a little bit one side or the other, and you don't have to lift your pelvis up a long way. Okay. And have a rest, any position. So now we're going to add a little bit more. Okay. So I'll talk it through and then you can do it when you're ready. So yesterday we finished by taking a long leg through and still finding that you could have that freedom in your head. Remember we did the head circles and that you were balanced over these two areas of support and had to find all this freedom in your head. So this time, when you take one leg through, watch the space for the people around you here. Could you, from that point, if you just kept sliding that leg through, could you come to lying on your back? So in your 4 points, you're going to take a long leg through and you keep sliding it through and roll onto your back and lie down on your back. So how far have you turned? Where did you go to go down? Your head, can you feel, stayed in the same orientation and just went straight down to the ground? Yeah, so you were facing in a particular direction and then you just took your head down to the ground. So how are you going to come back? How do you reverse that? Where did you go? Where did your head go? And where are those 4 points to come back to? Where are those 4 points to come back to? So you've really got, yeah. So you go 90 degrees and then your head goes down. And then you've got to really lie there and go, where are my 4 points to come back to? How clearly can I come back to those 4 points? And the trick is the orientation, that you're going exactly 90 degrees. So where do you start? Yeah? And you go down to sitting. Where's your head? You've turned exactly 90. No, that's 180. You're going to go exactly 90 degrees. No, so your leg's swinging too far. Yeah? So swing your leg through 90 degrees. There. So your head is, and now go down. Yeah? This will make more sense tomorrow. This very clear 90 degrees is going to demand something of you. Because there's something in here that we'll go in a little bit more tomorrow about how much you can lift, how much you can spiral rather than just going round in a circle. How much your pelvis can lift up into the air instead of just going round in a circle. So again, it's getting that long leg through. The long leg reaching through to your 90, and then you just lie down. And then you know where your 4 points are. How do you orient? Go, do I know where my 4 points are when I'm down on the ground? And how do I come back onto exactly the same 4 points? And is it getting clearer and clearer where your 4 points are? How you can organize around these points. So your pelvis lifts to lift the leg and then it spirals down 90 degrees. And then you just keep following it and lie on your back. And then you come back up again. So what has this got to do with knowing how to rotate our head around the midline? This ability to just go this 90 degrees, to involve more and more, that we've got more length, that lets more parts of us turn, that we've got this freedom through our shoulders, through our upper back, our ability to shift our weight around our hands and our shoulders. And where do you lead it from? Your pelvis or your head? Yeah. So can you feel from the moment you start, your pelvis never stops moving. It's doing a very particular movement. It's a spiral, but there's a spiral up. Not a spiral around, but a spiral up. So, you know, you can really, right at the beginning, just check how free is my neck? Where's my breathing? Because if your jaw's tight, if your neck's tight, well, how's that going to influence this? If you haven't got both feet, both hands, everything in the image. How fast could you do the movement? Would that be something interesting to do if you don't think too much? Watch out for the people around you. But if you just didn't think too much and just went, that's it, Ramon. Yep, don't think, just do it. Because this is where maybe attention gets in the way, paying too much detail. So what happens if I just think, I've got the ingredients, let me just do it. I've put all the ingredients in there, just go, boom. Next time you come up to standing, stay there for a moment and go for a walk and just see what feels different. What happens when you have to spread your attention like this? And again, you know, this is where Feldenkrais was the master of demanding things where it's never a, you know, it's not really a free for all because he's keeping you oriented in a particular direction. He's demanding something in your organization. So, wherever you are, go down to your 4 points and go for a walk. See how it feels now. How do you do it? Do you do one limb at a time to walk? Do you do two together? Has anything got any easier? Anything got any easier? So some of you are leaving your hands where they are and jumping your feet around your hands. You can actually move now. But there's possibilities there. No? This is baby stuff, really. This is how babies do it, you know. They don't all of a sudden become masters. It's all of this experimenting. It's all of this. Huh? So now let's make it easier for some of you. Go down onto your hands and knees now. So we've shortened the levers in your legs a little bit here. Just go for a crawl. How fast could you go? Can you cross over your hands? Can you go backwards and sideways? Change direction, roll over each other, avoid people. Ah, Leah's not here? This was for Leah, this bit, because she was talking about making things fun and light, and always happens. Always happens. So, simply as you're sitting there at the moment, how does it feel to be you at the moment? How does it feel? What possibilities do you feel at the moment? And how quickly could you get up to standing? Come on, up. Huh? Have a walk around. So we're going to finish a bit early today. Yay! Seeing you've got to come a bit early in the morning. So before we finish, though, we just need, with this same sense, we need to clear the space to really tidy up. So I think your little dots might have to come up off the floor. And we'll just organise some mats, and the mats we don't need. I think we'll need all of them, though, personally, all the mats. And get things set up for tomorrow. So think of this feeling in the morning when you're going to teach.